Wake up, Daddy's home.
Welcome home, son.
All praises to the Most High. What's up, everyone? It's Sowing for Truth. I know that I've been off YouTube, not posting for a while, and I just wanted to explain to you guys, here's why. So one night we were reading Ezekiel chapter 1, and many of you who know, this mentions how Ezekiel had saw the chariots and the wheels inside of the wheel, and what got me thinking was, what if it's not a chariot, but is actually CERN? And those of you who don't know what CERN is what they say is supposed to be a huge scientific experiment where you take one atom and you take another or two particles and you bash them together, and they just want to see all the stuff that happens after you bash it together. Basically, they're trying to talk about the Big Bang and how the world was created and all that. As we know, there's a lie. But moving forward, so I was thinking, what if it wasn't a chariot, but it was CERN? I used to watch this TV show called Flash and a lot more movies as well, as you can tell. You're probably thinking, well, what does this have to do with anything? Well, Iron Man is, anybody who watches Marvel movies and stuff, like anybody who used to watch them or watches them now, is Tony Stark, and he's a huge scientist kid or whatever. In order for him to, he had shrapnel locked in his chest, from this huge explosion that happened. So this guy who was with him in prison, Jensen, he built this tunnel arc reactor thing. He built this to keep the shrapnel from entering into his heart. So all these little pieces he was able to keep, but there was one piece that was going to enter in his heart. So he built this thing in his chest to keep it so he wouldn't die. So it was called the arc reactor. So Tony built this thing called the arc reactor, which powers his chest and his, he had a bigger one at home, but he had to make a little one in order to survive. And anyway, and the arc reactor also powers his suits, the Iron Man suits that he wears. And then in Spider-Man, into the Spideyverse, where they actually have the black kid now, Miles Morales, he was actually fighting Kingpin. And Kingpin also had this huge, interdimensional, big, colorful version of CERN, but in a children's movie. And it was supposed to bring his wife and his son back who died because they found out that he was actually a bad guy. So he built this in order to bring them back. So what it was doing was, when he cut this machine on this, in the movie it's called a hadron collider, which is also another name for CERN, which I found very interesting. And it caused all these colors and stuff like that, and it was bringing in dimensions and dimensions and dimensions, which is why it's called the Spideyverse. So you had Gwen in there, and Spider-Man from like 1900s, and Pig Spider-Man, and this Chinese girl Spider-Man. So it was all these different spider people from different dimensions who were living the same lives, kind of like the parallel world. And Flash also talked about the same thing, where he would run into the Speed Force and he would come out, he would create an alternate reality.
This is the timeline. This is the point that we exist on it right now. This past point is where my mom was murdered. So when I saved her, I created a new reality, a new timeline.
Because he wanted to go back in time and save his mother from dying, which actually caused a whole bunch of other problems. But moving on, that's what this Hadron Collider did, which also looked a lot like CERN. Batman also had the same thing in the Batman Begins movie, Christian Bale and Michael Caine. Actually, which is very interesting, Christian Bale actually thanked Satan at one of his award ceremonies. Actually, that's what it said on the news, but I never actually saw the clip. So if you guys want to look into that, you definitely can. I don't know if it to be true or not, but he causes people to sin, which makes him wicked.
Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration on how to play this role.
Anyway, in Batman, it was called the microwave emitter, which Ra's al Ghul, Liam Neeson, was using to, it was going to activate this Scarecrow's toxin, which was this poison that they were implanting in the water system. And it was, they had to cut on this microwave emitter, which was going to activate it into people's cells and stuff like that. So they were drinking the water, they were taking it in all these years and stuff. Actually, people who were drinking water took showers and stuff like that. It was in their skin, it was getting in their system, and they had to cut this microwave emitter thing on in order for it to activate, like it to actually do something. And when they cut it on, it was causing people fear and toxins, which is very interesting. Is Ra's al Ghul, he turned it on so that he could use, which is interesting, he turned it on because he wanted Gotham to be baptized by itself. It was time for Gotham to pay for their sins and their iniquity and stuff like that. Kind of like Assassin's Creed, where they were talking about the assassins and the Templars and how the assassins fight for freedom and all this other stuff, and the Templars fight for order and chaos. So they're these enemies, but you're playing as a good guy who's installing that freedom is you need to be free and we can't let people rule over us. Well, the law is freedom, which doesn't make any sense to me. The law is freedom. And you know what I mean? And then actually it was in Assassin's Creed 3 where Haymitch was talking to his son, Connor, and he was saying that no, freedom is chaos.
What is it the Templars truly seek?
Order. Purpose. Direction. No more than that. It's your lot that means to confound with this nonsense talk of freedom. Time was. The assassins professed a far more sensible goal. That of peace.
Freedom is peace.
Oh no. It's an invitation to chaos. Only look at this little revolution your friends have started. I have stood before the Continental Congress and listened to them stamp and shout. All in the name of liberty. But it is just noise.
And this is why you favor Lee?
He understands the needs of this would-be nation far better than the jobberknolls who profess to represent it.
It seems your tongue has tasted sour grapes. The people have made their choice, and it was Washington.
The people chose nothing. It was done by a group of privileged cowards seeking only to enrich themselves. They convened in private and made a decision that would benefit them. Oh, they might have dressed it up with pretty words. That does not make it true. The only difference, Connor, the only difference between myself and those you aid is that I do not feign affection.
And the Templars fight for order, this and the third. Well, the Most High is order. These are two different organizations fighting for basically what we have in the law. So honestly, it's just pointless and stupid and something of the world. But I just thought that was very interesting how they divide it when it's all one and the same thing in the law. Anyway, I'm totally getting off the point here. The point being, Ra's al Ghul wanted to cut this emitter on, and then the emitter looks just like CERN. And actually, there are more other movies that actually have the representation of CERN in them, but I don't remember. So, prayerfully, Most High willing, it'll come to me as I move along. But anyway, then my mom and I saw this Jinn movie, which was back in 2014, and it was interesting because it mentions how these jinns were in the book of Ezekiel. And the guy said, as you know, in the Old Testament, the prophet Ezekiel.
Some people call it the Old Testament. From the prophet Ezekiel. And out of the midst of fire came 4 living creatures with the likeness of man. Their appearance was like burning coals of fire, at the center of which looked like molten metal. And the living creatures moved with the appearance of a flash of lightning. They've been around for a long time.
I thought that was very interesting because Brother Rap also talks about jinn in the same manner, sort of, I think. Yeah. And then it talks about it, and when we precepted it, it actually went back to Revelation chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. And as many of us know, that's the representation of how the prophet looks. You know, he's black and he's got woolly hair and stuff like that. But it said that the fire was going up and down in his loins. And before I go on, I want people to know that I'm not teaching, though there is nothing in the law that says a woman can't teach, because I have not seen that anywhere in the law whatsoever. That was actually said by Paul, who was a Pharisee, who was a Jew, who was a Gentile, who was all these different things, and has many multiple lies in the Old Testament and makes up majority of the Christian belief anyway. But there's no way in the law that I seen that. But no, I am not teaching whatsoever. I'm just explaining to you guys what I was doing while I was off YouTube. But back to what I was saying, the movies that I was watching to understand if CERN was in the Bible, why is it in there? And if people say that, I actually heard it mentioned that CERN is actually a doorway to portals and all these different places. Well, I wanted to know if this is actually a portal thing, then what's coming out of it? You know, what's the point of it? What's the point of all this? Obviously, you know, you can't leave the firmament. Obviously, there's no way you're going to get to the moon. We live on a flat earth. Obviously, the Most High controls everything. What's the point of the portal? And then they show pictures of how CERN looks exactly like Babylon, and what was in the beginning will happen in the end. Not Babylon, excuse me, the Tower of Babel. And I thought that was very interesting as well. And then the scriptures also mention how men's hearts will fail them for what's coming on the earth. And I was like, what do you mean what's coming on the earth? Like, is something coming here, or will something be happening? And it made me think maybe something is coming through CERN. Am I right? I don't know. But I did try. I did want to look into this, you know. The scene and there was a scene in Flash where he had to run super fast around this particle accelerator, which is another word for CERN. So you have CERN, Hadron Collider, which is also mentioned in Spider-Man.
Not unless you know what the hell a quark is.
It's a subatomic particle. You know, the building block of protons, neutrons, hadrons.
Subatomic. It fits. Good one, kid.
And then you have Flash, which is also particle accelerator. So Hadron Collider and particle accelerator are both mentioned in CERN. And I think arc reactor was as well, but I don't want to say that for sure. You know, I don't want to just say something, but I think it was mentioned as well. So anyway, Flash has to run so fast where it opens up the speed force, quotations implied. And I heard a video where this woman was saying that running so fast, going so fast, they were talking about in jets or planes where, you know, they talk about the sonic barrier, the sound barrier is also something that can also open a portal because mankind can't move so fast. So they need something that can move so fast that would be able to open something like that be able to break the seal of speed itself, I guess.
Is it just a coincidence that when we break dimensional barriers, like breaking the sound barrier, that means moving faster than a particular frequency range, which is a dimension? Frequency ranges are the dimensions, the octaves of reality. So when we break a dimensional barrier, like breaking the sound barrier, is it just a coincidence that a cloud-like substance is formed? And we hear a sonic boom, a thunderous boom, very similar to what we hear during storms, thunderous booms, while oftentimes we see these enormous.
And anyway, and then Flash has and in the TV show Flash, they have a prison for bad metahumans, and now this tunnel of metahumans looks exactly like CERN. It looks exactly like CERN. Not to mention, this is also in Ant-Man and the Wasp when she was bringing her mother out of the quantum field out of the quantum realm, and there was this tunnel that looked exactly like CERN. And I thought that was very interesting. And they also have CERN is also mentioned for its quantum physics, quantum mechanics, quantum engineering, and that was also mentioned in Transformers.
The only countries with this kind of capability are Russia, North Korea, maybe China.
I'm sorry, that's not correct. They hacked your firewall in 10 seconds. Okay, even a supercomputer with a brute force attack would take 20 years to do that.
Maybe you can explain then how our latest satellite imagery shows North Korea doubling its naval activity.
Maybe it's a precaution, because isn't that what we're doing? Signal pattern is learning. It's evolving on its own, and you need to move past Fourier transfers and start considering quantum mechanics.
There is nothing on Earth that complex.
What about an organism? A living organism, maybe some kind of DNA-based computer.
She was saying that as a representative because they were trying to understand how are these transformers, how is something moving so fast that it's able to break into our facility. And obviously it's a movie and stuff like that, but this is all demonics at demonics. I'm not even going to say at its finest because that's not fine at all whatsoever. And then I saw this tunnel in this movie, Jay Ascending, and I say Jay because it is forbidden to say names of idols, to even let it come out of our mouths, so I'm not even going to try to say it. But Jay, in the movie, there's this huge tunnel of all these different colors that were also mentioned in Ezekiel, like the amber and the beryl, and I just thought that was very interesting. And the same colors also look like that on CERN with the terrible crystal and everything, the sea of glass. If you look at those scriptures of Ezekiel chapter 1 and chapter 10 and Revelation chapter 1, and then there's another, I think it's Revelation chapter 4, but I don't know for sure yet. I actually have to go back and check. It's and under Bible Hub, if you read it under different translations, it shows all of that. And before anyone asks, I did not get this picture I did not create this. I actually got this picture off of Pinterest. And so what I think is very interesting is that these pagan deities tie right into my Instagram post with the scripture to not worship these. It's absolutely ridiculous. The Most High knew exactly what he was doing. But moving on, there was another movie, but I don't remember it. I definitely do want to give you guys, what my information, but I don't remember it. Anyway, my people, this is what I wasn't on for a while. But back to the fire up and down in his loins. This Jinn movie, it had this bad guy thing where it it was like the head jinn, I guess, and it came out and had the fire up and down his loins. It had the coal and stuff like that, and his feet were like black, just like in mentions in Revelation. But what I want to mention about Revelation, it says that his feet were that of like brass out of a fire. But none of us have feet that are that dark. Like we're talking sackcloth black. Nobody has feet like that, because at some point your feet, on the bottom of your feet, it has a light color, soft padding and stuff like that. And this jinn thing was also showed again in Terminator. And actually, before I move on, there was an X-Men clip of CERN itself with the circles inside of a circle, wheels inside of a wheel, when they were trying to break into Cerebro. And they had when Stryker was breaking into Cerebro in X-Men 2, they had to use that thing it was like a key unlocking this thing, and then it opened the doorway into Cerebro, which is like interesting because of the prefix itself, which is cerebellum, which also links to the brain, the mind, and that was Charles's ultimate power, mind games. Anyway, back to the jinn and the fire up and down his loins. The same clip also kind of sort of happened in Wolverine, where he saved that Japanese man, and his whole head and stuff was like from the fire because he was protecting the guy. And remember, he can regenerate his cells can regenerate. That's why he was able to last so long and stuff like that. And he stayed the same age because that was one of his abilities. He had healing. And so that's what I thought was very interesting. He also looked like the jinn thing, and John Connor, he was walking out of the fire in this Terminator thing. And as he was transforming, he had that picture look. So honestly, it takes a toll on you, and it got hard for me to focus, and I got tired of it, and at some point it was pointless. But do I believe that CERN is in the Bible, or that something is going to come through a portal, or that CERN itself is a portal? I don't know, and I don't know. What I do know is that there's a pattern, and that's what I notice patterns. I remember things. I look, I see it, and I'm like, hey, that came from this way. Hey, that came from this movie, that TV show. I remember someone saying that. I had somebody tell me that. It's a constant reminder, and I actually saw this video recently that brainwashing is repetition. Now, whether or not this is brainwashing itself, I don't know, but I know that I keep seeing this everywhere. It's constantly shown up, very subtle, as the serpent, as the beast itself. I'm just saying that it's something to look at. So I thought I would actually share some of what I got, and I actually think in Ezekiel there was the voice, and that he heard the voice of like a voice of many waters. Well, I was thinking, what if it wasn't a voice of many waters, but it was a voice of many voices, like all voices talking at once, like Legion? Because when you read it under Bible Hub, it sounded like rushing waters, or it sounded as loud as water. So was it really water that they heard, or was it all these different voices talking at once, which was the many waters, the echo of all these, I don't know.
My name is Legion, for we are many.
And so that's what I gathered, and actually, prayerfully, most high willing, I'll be posting again regularly. You guys let me know what you think. I definitely wanted to share, why I've been out. I wasn't doing nothing. It wasn't because anything that happened. I'm perfectly fine. I have all praises to the Most High. And I wanted to let you guys know before I go, I took off my Facebook and my Snapchat, but I do still have my Instagram. You guys can email me, as you saw in my last video, at sowingfortruth@yahoo.com. I'm actually going to be putting that in my description boxes, so I don't have to keep saying that. And all praises to the Most High. I love you guys. Later.